I constantly was running the same cycle over and over, and for me, I ended up in handcuffs. I grew up in Thousand Oaks, California, Newbury Park actually, but no one really knows that. So my childhood was marked by like isolation. I knew something was up. I think something intuitively I knew was up, because I had the beginnings, I believe, of obsessive compulsive disorder, that really, like, and anxiety and all these things that just kind of racked my childhood. Everything was like the pink elephant in the room at my home, at where I was growing up. I have a brother who was 2 years older than me, and all this stuff was behind closed doors. But I never spoke with anyone about it. And my friends would pick on me about it, my weight, and my size, and my little behaviors, and I secretly, like, it hurt. I always blame my mom. My mom always blamed me. My dad reacted to my mom for a period of time, and then he stopped reacting to her, and he just gave up. The evenings in my home were really turbulent. I love my mother. I think she had a little bit of a drinking issue. It made the home life in the evenings, it was markedly at like 4 p.m. to like 10 p.m. or 8 p.m. because she'd go to bed. There was a shift. There was a lot of emotional turbulence, and it was like, fucking hate you, you fucking suck, where's your girlfriend, and that's what my mom would yell, and I would yell back, and I was always the one that met her like venom with equal ferocity. I spat just back. Looking back on it now, it's like, no, she did the best she could with what she had, and I have responsibility. Now I do. My escape was digital. I loved computer games. I was addicted. I played them like 16 hours a day. I ate a lot of food. I felt like I was overweight. I had few friends, and that was okay. My dad would take us to the bookstore, and I would never read the books, but I'd buy them for the pretty covers. I'd buy all these fantasy novels, and I would never read them. I'd rarely read them, but I remember when I would read, it was like I was lost. I was lost in my own world. I didn't want to be myself. I think deep down inside I hated myself. I hated myself a lot, and I didn't know it. First time I took a drink, really serious drink, was I think like I was 14 years old. I remember drinking a lot and not getting drunk, but acting like I was. At that point, I don't think I'd crossed over that invisible line of addiction, but I remember smoking weed, and that didn't really do it for me either. It was cool, but I was always hanging out with other people that I felt were like assholes. Like they got high and they turned into a prick, and I just wanted to like listen to Enya and like have an Oreo cookie shake and like just lay on my bed and listen to music, and I never really let myself do that. Long story short, snorted the meth, didn't really do anything, but the second time I did it, that's when I found God. That's that moment where I was like, this is it. This is fucking it. And I was up for like 3 days. I kind of was scared by it, and the drug kind of scared me. At that time, I wanted to be like the embodiment of that darkness in a sense, or that when I got to that point, I realized this isn't all great, years down the road, but I kind of was like, this is cool. No one likes it, or everyone gives it a bad rap. Like, I want to do it. That kick started my addiction like crazy. I found the answer to all my problems. I feel amazing. I had weight issues. Obviously for me, when I did meth, I didn't eat, and got really skinny, and I was like, yeah, this is great. That first time I did it, I remember I wrote a report why drugs should be legalized, and I remember spending like 10 hours on it, and then, getting all this documentation and footnotes and headers why drugs should be legalized, and da-da-da-da-da, and then when I get to class, I'm so high, I'm so gacked out of my mind on meth that I couldn't even present my case. But that was like my first experience with meth, and that solidified. I cleaned up before I joined the service. I cleaned up for a little bit. I remember I literally was 7 days clean, because it started to pick up more and more speed, right, as I was getting closer to joining the military, and then I was able to stop. I never forgot it, during my time, you know, when I was in the military. I was like, I need to do this, and I just didn't do it until I got out. When I got out, I just picked up right where I left off, and I just did not stop using. And it was like a daily thing. I'm not there anymore. Darren's completely gone. I got arrested a lot. I think the worst was getting arrested on my robbery charge. I knocked over a drug dealer and her boyfriend, and they had drugs, and they, you know, called the cops, and I did a robbery. I committed a robbery. When I came back from Northern California, they're like, we want to talk to you. You want to come down to the station? And my drug-addled mind, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go tell my side of the story, thinking I would walk out of there. I showed up to the police station, they arrested me, and they booked me on a robbery charge. And that was probably those first few months in jail, knowing I was going away, probably gonna be going away for a while, was the worst. I always get arrested because I'm eventually homeless. You know, the law of averages is gonna have me run into a police officer, and drugs are my security blanket. I can't leave it with anywhere else because someone might steal it. So I have my dope on me, I have my meth, my heroin, whatever I have on me at that time, my needles, I have everything with me. And I'm usually homeless, so eventually I run into the cops. So I got arrested a lot. Did it stop me from using again? No, because I eventually relapsed. But that whole time, you know, I gained a little bit more clarity. And I'll be honest, this scared the shit out of me. Since I served in the military, it put a target on my, you know, because I tattooed USMC on the back of my neck, on knucklehead when I was younger, you know, when I got out of the service. And, you know, it's like, oh, you're in the military. Oh, yeah, you need to do this. Because, yeah, I just, you know, my first time in prison, they make you do these things. You know, you got to jump in, you got to beat up people, you need to earn your stripes. And if you don't do it, we're going to jump you or we're going to stab you. Played a lot of D&D, believe it or not, Dungeons and Dragons, the pen and paper thing. You see these huge burly guys, and they're you know, it's, you know, you think of Dungeons and Dragons and it's these kids in a basement, all nerdy and stuff, and you don't realize that it's actually a pretty big thing in the state prison system because it's a beautiful way to escape. And we'd have these huge guys you'd never meet. We would never come together out in society. We're all around a table playing D&D, like tossing dice and pretending to be these characters. And that really helped to pass the time, and I read a lot of books. But that whole experience is directly a result of my meth and my heroin use. Paroled from prison in January of 2013, and I had like maybe 22 months. I wasn't keeping track of sobriety at that time. I got a job. I went back to my parents' place. I got a job, got a car. I was working doing sales, and the guys at the sales place that I was doing sales at, they all drank. Most of them did. There were some guys in recovery there. It was like cold call sales. I was pretty good at it. This pre-workout supplement that before they re-released it recently, was called Craze. And one of the guys, my supervisor there, had it. He's like, hey, you want to try this? And so I was like, yeah, let's do this. And at that time I was working out, I was exercising, and I got this buzz. And it was like 30 minutes. And I found out it was taken off the market because it had an analog, I believe, of methamphetamine or amphetamine. That's when my relapse started. And then a week later I was drinking with the guys. And then a week after that, I lost that job and I was shooting meth and I was shooting heroin. I used for 3 months. I got kicked out of my house. I was living with a girl that I met at a meeting, and she was in a really fancy rehab, and we left there, and she had a really good job at a place in Malibu, at a restaurant in Malibu, and so she was bringing home a good amount of money, and I was going out and I was getting the drugs, so everything was perfect. We were living on the west, we were living over by UCLA. One of her coworkers had like a place over by the campus, and I was living over there with her, and we were just getting high, just getting loaded. I would wake up and I had to have my heroin close enough to me because I was so sick in the morning that I'd have to be able to reach it as easily as possible and start smoking or do a shot of heroin just to get right. And then after that, I'd have to do my meth because I had to get up and do stuff for the day. So that was a chore in and of itself. And for me, after that, how much money do I have? How many items do I have on me that I can possibly sell? And then I was looking at like, or what other tweaker tasks could I do? It was like looking on my phone, downloading apps and looking at stuff and, you know, downloading and looking at all these neat features on these apps and doing absolutely nothing. Getting in the car and driving and looking for police officers, and if a cop pulls up behind you, your heart rate goes, and I'm already loaded out of my mind. And when I get pulled over, I'm a dead giveaway. And I got arrested on PCH on my way home from Ventura to go pick her up at her restaurant. I was out on heroin, I was also high on meth, and I was driving, and I remember I thought I was going the speed limit, but all these cars behind me were like honking at me, and so I slowed down and I started flicking them off, and I was like, fuck you, motherfucker. The sheriff's department saw me, and they were trailing me, and so when I pull into her parking lot to pick her up, as she's coming out, you know, you hear the boo-boo, and like the 3 sheriff's cars pull up with the tow truck, because I think they thought I was drunk, but there was just a bunch of meth and heroin and like syringes. I spent 5 months in LA County going through this case, and again, my family, they didn't want me to get railroaded this time, so they got a paid attorney. You know, money talks and bullshit walks. He put me in front of a judge, and I was able to get a treatment program. I never really stopped of my own volition. I would reach out to my family in the very early stages of my progression of addiction in my 20s, and I'd go into rehab, and then I'd get out and I'd relapse, and I wouldn't finish the program, I wouldn't really do anything. So it was just the endless cycles of treatment centers, and that probably was for, you know, it was for a good few years. Someone's been watching over me. I could have walked away with like a lifelong like illness like HIV, you know, I could have walked away with hepatitis C, and not to, you know, I would have made me a stronger person if I'd ended up like that. I'm still here, and that getting swept up out of society and put into a cage, you know, put into a cell was a good thing. My sobriety date's July 22nd of 2013. On July 21st, when I got arrested, I remember when I woke up on July 22nd, that's when I made the resolve that I don't care what it takes. I'm gonna do what, anything. If I have to wade through a pool of human feces, I will do it to stay sober. I was honest with my therapist when I was in the program this last time, in the treatment program. And I said, I feel like I got interrupted in my using. I don't know if I'm gonna stop if I get off parole and probation. You know, that time came and it went, and I didn't get high. I got the 6 months inpatient, 6 months outpatient, joint suspended sentence. It was like 4 or 5 years. So if I had basically had police contact when I was released, or I failed to do the program, I go to prison for 4 or 5 years. I didn't do everything great because I ended up getting transferred to another one of their Tarzana's other program. You know, I was fraternizing with a woman. I always say that because that's what they called it. I was fraternizing with a woman at Tarzana Treatment Center. They found out about it, and they were like, we're transferring you to Lancaster. And I was like, here I am, screwing things up, and I have the opportunity, you know, I didn't even have to get loaded and I could go back to prison. For me, this is my own personal belief, rehab isn't supposed to be a comfortable, it is. You know, we can make the, you know, the creature comforts, you can have a nice bed, you can have all this good stuff, but the internal work that I don't want to look at, the stuff that my psyche is trying to hide me, like trying to protect me against, the stuff that I'm trying to get down and dig deep into, my natural reaction is to pull away and to put up my walls. And I think for me, it was to dig deep into all the stuff I didn't want to talk about, and I didn't want to share with anyone, and I thought I was going to take to the grave with me, and all these things that I'd done in my past, I needed to shed some light on that stuff and share it with someone. This time it was okay, I'm going to do what it takes, because I am not going to keep getting the same results that I get. Don't get me wrong, I'm a drug addict, you know, I have a drug addiction. If I could shoot meth and heroin on a Friday, right after I got off work, shoot it through the weekend, end on a Sunday, if I could do that, I would do it. Because, you know, there's a reason I use drugs, because they were great. I can't do that. I do heroin, I do meth, I do anything the wheels are gonna fall off. I'm gonna lose my job. Doesn't matter if I'm working in treatment or not. The job's gonna fall away. It's all gonna go. My family's gonna, I'm gonna completely destroy myself. I'll drive, usually to the beach. It's kind of important, especially when I'm not going to work. I want to just kind of zone out as I'll drive to the beach, and I'll kind of just look out at the ocean, but it's always been something that's like my brain just kind of shuts off when I drive. The freedom that I've kind of gained now it's not necessarily I've been freed physically, but also spiritually, emotionally, and I still go through times, trials, tribulations. It's not a one-time, it's not a one-time thing. This is life. Things are always changing. Things are always going on. I'm always having a new experience. I'm dealing with life issues, and I get the blessing, I get the gifts, I get the opportunity to actually deal with life issues. My family was immediately affected by my substance abuse. People that, when I stole things, when I get arrested, it's affecting the taxpayer. When I go into treatment, and whether it's bad or good, it ripples. The effects of addiction ripple. The drugs I was prescribed, the doctors that I saw, shared my story with, all because of my drug addiction. It was huge. There's so many facets. It's like, and we're seeing it more today, how widespread addiction is, specifically opioid addiction, but I think it goes to everything. Addiction's been around, it's gonna be around. I don't know if they're gonna find some silver bullet cure. I doubt it. I think we are a long ways away from fully understanding the human brain, because I know there's a component there, but it affects so many people, and I know that I affected so many people in both bad and good ways. More often bad. In active addiction, it's not good. It's all bad. All bets are off when I start using. I think this is probably the first time where I've done it, like an in-depth telling of my story. I've shared at meetings, and I know that my default is to kind of gloss over my story when I'm kind of sharing with someone in recovery, just to kind of do that identification, just to self-identify with them, or to kind of find some common link. I really never had the opportunity or the chance to do it in a really explicit, down to the details, like really asking questions that really make me think. This would be the first time, really, other than like a 2 or 3 or 5 minute share at a meeting. If I want to do something, I can go and do it. I have the freedom to go do it. When back in the day, even in early recovery, I didn't have that freedom. Loaded, I didn't have that freedom. I was like, oh, let's go do this, let's go do that. Nothing ever happened. But my life, a normal day for me is just to wake up, do what I got to do that day, and lay down at night, and and just be grateful that I'm still here. I'm still sober, I'm still abstinent. I don't have to do that shit again.